Between 180 and 235 AD, Rome cycled through 27 different emperors in 55 years. Most ruled for less than 2 years. 6 were murdered by their own guards, and nearly all showed the same cluster of behaviors. Wild impulsivity, inability to focus on long-term threats, constant novelty seeking, decisions that made no sense even to their own advisors. That's not just bad luck, that's a pattern. And when you line up what historians recorded with what we now know about ADHD, something uncomfortable starts to show up. August 9th, 378. Emperor Valens marched his army for 8 hours under the sun. No water, no rest. His scouts rode back with a number. 10,000 Goths ahead, camped behind a circle of wagons. Valens had around 15,000 men, maybe more. The math said wait. Reinforcements were 1 day away. His officers told him to wait. He didn't. He ordered the attack that same afternoon. His soldiers were already exhausted, throats dry, legs shaking. The Goths lit the grass on fire, and smoke rolled across the field. Then, the Gothic cavalry came down like thunder from the flanks. The Roman line folded. 20,000 men died that day. Valens burned alive inside a house or disappeared. No one found his body. What makes that decision stick in your head isn't that it was wrong. It's that it was predictable. Short-term reward over long-term strategy. Glory now, consequences later. Valens chased the win he could see and ignored the danger he couldn't. That's the same wiring that makes a kid with ADHD start a project the night before it's due when they had 2 weeks to do it. Plot twist. The Goths weren't 10,000. They were closer to 200,000 when you count the tribes that had crossed the Danube 2 years earlier. Valens had lost track of the bigger picture. He fixated on the number in front of him and let everything else blur out. We've spent centuries calling this bad leadership. But what if it wasn't leadership at all? What if it was neurology playing out at the scale of an empire? The inability to wait. The inability to plan past the next reward. The catastrophic misjudgment of risk. These aren't just the traits that broke Valens at Adrianople. They're the same executive dysfunctions listed in the DSM-5 under ADHD. And the question no one's asked yet is this: did the same wiring that makes you lose your keys doom the largest empire on Earth? In 238, the Goths hit the Roman city of Histria for the first time. Rome sent troops to chase them off. The troops did. Then the Romans went home. They had dealt with what was in front of them. They did not fortify the frontier. They did not ask why the Goths were coming or whether they would come back. They just moved on to the next fire. 138 years later, 200,000 Goths were standing on the far side of the Danube, begging to cross into Roman territory. The empire said yes, not out of mercy, out of profit. Roman officials saw a short-term windfall, and they took it. They traded food to the starving Goths in exchange for slaves. Not just anyone, the children of Gothic leaders, the sons and daughters of the people they had just let in. The Goths revolted. Of course they did. 2 years after that, Valens marched his army 8 hours under the August sun to meet them at Adrianople. His men were hungry and exhausted when they reached the battlefield. Scouts told him the Goths had maybe 10,000 fighters. Valens had somewhere between 15,000 and 30,000. He did not wait for reinforcements. He saw a chance to win glory before his co-emperor arrived, and he took it. The Goths lit the grass on fire. Smoke rolled across the Roman line. Then Gothic and Allan cavalry came down on the Roman flank. Around 20,000 Romans died that day. Valens himself vanished. Some say he burned alive in a farmhouse the Goths torched. His body was never found. Alaric sacked Rome in 410. The Vandals did it again in 455. On September 4th, 476, a Germanic general named Odoacer walked into the palace and deposed the last Western Roman emperor, a teenager named Romulus Augustulus. That was it. The empire was gone. Every decision was made for the reward right in front of them. Profit now, consequences later. Visible threat, reactive response. Glory today, disaster you deal with when it shows up. And the disaster was always slow, always building, always ignored until it was too late. ADHD is real. It runs in families, somewhere between 75 and 80% heritable. About 5% of children have it, but the traits themselves, distractibility, impulsivity, hyper-focus on whatever's new and bright, those bleed across the population in degrees. What if the Romans saw it but had no framework to name it? A senator's son who couldn't sit through rhetoric lessons. A general who made brilliant tactical calls but forgot to secure supply lines. A whole ruling class selected for the exact qualities that look like decisiveness in the moment and catastrophe 10 years later. Empires do not have ADHD, but the people running them do. And when those people hold power, their wiring writes policy. Full source list on screen with journal citations. Dig into the sources yourself, link below. And if this landed, we'd love to have you along for the next one. So where does that leave you? Staring at a pattern no one in Rome could name because the word didn't exist yet. ADHD wasn't diagnosed until 1798. A Scottish doctor named Alexander Crichton described something he called inattention morbide. George Still gave it a proper name in 1902, watching children who couldn't sit still, who acted before they thought, who seemed driven by a motor no one else could see. The Romans had no word for it. The behavior, though, that was there. Valens wasn't lazy. The sources call him easily impressed, say he lacked courage. I don't buy the cowardice angle. This is a man who couldn't hold focus under pressure, who made snap calls when waiting would have saved him, who marched 8 hours into a fight because sitting still felt impossible. One emperor didn't doom Rome, but the system he was part of, that's worth looking at. The empire rewarded fast twitch thinking. Military glory came from decisive action, not patient logistics. Political survival meant outmaneuvering rivals this week, not building stability for the next decade. Economic extraction was about squeezing provinces now, not protecting the frontier for your grandchildren. Short-term wins, immediate reward, every single time. ADHD traits thrive in that kind of environment, at least for a while, right up until the consequences pile up and there's nowhere left to run. This isn't determinism. ADHD doesn't doom civilizations automatically. Plenty of people with those traits build, create, without burning everything down. Lead, but put those traits inside a power structure that amplifies impulsivity and penalizes patience, and the scale starts to tip. The fall of Rome wasn't just political failure. It was a neurological pattern that became policy. And we encoded the same logic into the products you touch every day. Instagram's infinite scroll wasn't an accident. It was patented in 2013 as a deliberate mechanism to eliminate stopping cues, to keep you sliding from one post to the next without a moment to ask if you wanted to keep going. TikTok's algorithm refreshes faster than you can build tolerance, serving novelty at a pace that mirrors the same reward cycle that sent Valens charging into smoke. These aren't bugs. They're the Roman system rebuilt in silicon. Chase the immediate metric. Ignore the externality. Let someone else deal with the reckoning. September 4th, 476. A teenage emperor named Romulus Augustulus handed over the imperial insignia to a barbarian general named Odoacer. No battle, no siege, just a quiet exchange, and the Western Roman Empire ceased to exist. It didn't collapse with a roar. It ended with a shrug. The empire that couldn't stop chasing the next crisis finally ran out of crises to chase. You live in a world built exactly the same way. Notifications pull your eyes every 6 seconds. Dopamine loops reward the click, not the plan. Every app on your phone is designed to punish waiting and reward reacting. The Romans didn't have a name for it, but you do. ADHD isn't just a diagnosis. It's a wiring diagram. And we've spent the last 2,000 years building a civilization that runs on it. The trait that helped you survive on the savannah, the one that kept your ancestors scanning for threats and opportunities every second, is the same one that makes you refresh your email 12 times an hour. The emperors who couldn't focus on the Goths because there was always another rebellion, another famine, another faction to bribe, they were running your brain's software, just in marble and gold instead of pixels. Valens died at Adrianople. His body was never found. Some say he burned alive in a farmhouse the Goths torched. He was chasing glory right into the smoke. He couldn't stop moving long enough to see the trap closing around him. You don't have to do that. The question isn't whether ADHD traits doomed Rome. The question is whether you'll let the same wiring write your own collapse, one distracted decision at a time. You've got the advantage they didn't. You know what's happening. You can name it. And once you name it, you can decide what to do about it. One empire fell because it couldn't sit still. Yours doesn't have to.